This smartphone's biggest and best feature highlights a problem with smartphones in general. And how big of a problem is that? Well, it sort of comes down to who you ask. So let's talk about this very strange but majorly impressive piece of hardware. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomas, and right before we get started, this isn't a review. Okay? Keep that in mind. This is a ridiculously thin foldable. It's actually the thinnest in the world, 4.4mm open and 8.8 closed. A smidge thicker for the other colour variants as well. The USB-C port is barely there. There is hardly a lip to the internal bezels, and when you shut it, it's basically as thick as your average flagship from 2025. It's ridiculous. It's the Honor Magic V5. Their hinge mechanism feels great. The crease is certainly still there, but it's not nearly as noticeable and far more subtle than the earlier models. And to put it another way, I don't think the crease really takes away from the experience whatsoever because it's so well blended into the rest of the display. There is actually quite a lot to like about this phone. It has the Snapdragon 8 Elite, 16 gigs of RAM, half a terabyte of storage. It has a great pair of 120Hz LTPO OLED displays, a triple camera on the back with a periscope zoom in there as well, even in a foldable, and a whopping 5,820 mAh battery with 66 watt wide and 50 watt wireless charging as well. So there's an awful lot going on here. It's a flagship foldable with big specs to back that up. By the way guys, we're really trying to hit 500,000 subs, so if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, it would mean a lot. Thank you very much. The Magic V5's biggest feature though has to be its hardware, that all of that specification sits inside. Honor has tried its best to make this as thin and as light as possible, which it certainly succeeded with, as this phone is about as thick as a normal slab style smartphone when closed, which is kind of insane, although there is a massive camera bump on the back. But when you unfold it, it is insanely thin. Like, it almost doesn't feel real. The weight is an underrated spec, by the way. This is about the same weight as a flagship smartphone, 217 grams for this slightly lighter model. There is a slightly thicker model as well. And this is helped likely by the fact that the back is made of plastic and it is not a sort of slab of glass on there. And it's also IP58 and IP59 rated, which should mean that if you get caught out in the rain with your foldable, even when it's open, you should be alright. And that's actually one of the things that people have leveled towards foldable phones, is practicality concerns. There are lots of people, basically everyone I've ever shown a foldable to, who have said, the problem is these things are just too big, too heavy, and they're too delicate to use as a daily. And the second one is, they're way too expensive to justify. And though I can't comment on the latter because I have no idea on pricing, although I'm sure it is going to be four figures, Honor has put a lot of energy into not only making this as compromise free as possible with those weight and size savings that we've spoken about before, but also putting a ginormous battery in here. This battery is way bigger than what we've been used to on the smartphones coming out of Samsung foldables, for example, over the past few years. And it's basically what we expect out of a normal, no compromises flagship slab style smartphone right now. So what's the problem then? What are these radical new weight and size dimensions unearthing? Well, I think one of the reasons, if not the biggest reason, why foldables haven't taken off in the way maybe some of us expected them to, is simply due to their functionality. You pay four figures for a phone that is typically compromised compared to a bigger sort of slab style phone. And when opened, it turns into a bigger phone. Some might say an Android tablet. And do you know how popular Android tablets are? The answer is not very, at least compared to the Apple iPad, which dominates the market. We know that the smartphone market wants bigger screen phones. Not all of us, mind you. I personally like a compact smartphone, but the majority of people want big screens. Just look at the size of your average flagship, you know, the Pixel Pro XL, the iPhone Pro Max, the OnePlus 13, Galaxy Ultra, even the Galaxy Edge has a big old screen on it. These are big display devices, actually very similar size to the cover display on the Magic V5, and I think for most people that's just about the right size for a mobile display before you jump up to a laptop or a desktop, anything bigger than that. For instance, the Magic V5, like most foldables on the market, opens to a display around 8 inches. This one is actually 7.95 to be precise, and that gives you lots of screen to play with, but it's also a bit awkward and a bit wasted currently. Not a problem that stems particularly from the V5, but a problem with the V5's form factor in general that other foldables also have. Because now we've solved the problem of heft and size, like this is about as good as I think it needs to be, we're now realizing that maybe Android and the content we consume on our devices is just not ready for foldables yet. Maybe the hardware has actually for once outpaced the software to a point where we're now holding exquisite pieces of hardware, but that aren't being used to their full potential because of the software. Now I must add in here, the software on this device is non-final and I can't really evaluate it. I'm talking about this in the broader scope of the devices I have used, the Samsung Folds, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold, the OnePlus Open. I'm talking about Android in general here. And for me, Android in its current form is just not doing enough to take advantage of the bigger screen, but not just Android, the content we're consuming, the games we're playing, the content we're watching. It's not designed for a big square screen. That's not to say that you shouldn't buy a foldable or a V5 at all, by the way. I know two people on this earth that use one personally, and I have found that they are so hooked on this form factor, they will never go back to a slab phone. They found ways to make great use of that internal panel, whether that be for productivity, multitasking, playing games is a big one as well. I think with this sort of thing being so thin, having the big battery and having the 8th Gen Elite, you know, sticking one of those controllers on here that sort of stretches to the size of the phone could make this an incredible remote play and even emulation device. It sort of shapes like a Nintendo DS, just a bit bigger and more futuristic. The Honor Magic V5's hardware is undeniable. It really is an impressive package of a super satisfying hinge, really nice rails, a super shallow crease, and how they got such a big battery inside here, I'll never know. It certainly helps it's a silicon carbon type battery setup, as opposed to the more traditional lithium ion ones that we're used to seeing on Galaxy Folds and that kind of thing over the past few years. These batteries can actually be denser, so you can fit more capacity into a smaller physical space. But even still, it does make you wonder how they managed to get all that in here, all the other hardware, and still make it so thin. There are some things I don't love about the hardware. The fact that the weight and thickness varies based on which colour you buy, a bit of a strange one for me. The camera bump is just massive. I mean, I don't have any digital calipers with me, but I figure that's almost double the thickness of the phone when you take into consideration the camera bump on the back, which Honor hasn't in its marketing materials. The bezels of the internal display for me are just a little bit thick, although I'm not sure if this needs to be the case because the form factor is so thin. And I know the idea is so that it blends into the rest of the design, but for me, I will never be able to unsee the fact that on the cover display of the V5, the left side corners are sharper than the right side. It just looks wrong to me. Let me know in the comments if you feel the same way. But that brilliant hardware, and it really is good, for me simply removes one of the reasons why we might have not considered buying a foldable, and it reveals stronger questions about the practicalities of a larger phone display, the genuine uses for that, and about how Android and perhaps the apps we use, the content we watch, the games we play, just aren't ready for this kind of form factor yet. Perhaps by the time Android 17 rolls around, we'll be in a spot where the software is far closer to the hardware. And actually, you know what? Magic OS, the final version, isn't out yet. Maybe by the time that rolls around, Honor has found a way to really make good use of that internal panel. But since I don't have access to that right now, there's nothing I can really assess. This is for me the most impressive piece of foldable hardware I've ever used, and I just hope that the software does something different, because if not, I worry that the exquisite engineering could just simply go to waste. Bravo Honor, now show us what it can really do. Guys, what do you make of foldables? Do you think we're ready for them? Do you think that the hardware has outpaced the software? Such my theory kind of goes. Do you care at all? I think one of the reasons that I would just never buy one is that they cost so much for really something that isn't tailored perfectly to me. If I'm spending £1,400 on a phone, I want something that is pretty much perfect. And for me, this just isn't that. Let me know your thoughts on the whole thing in the comment section, and whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content, and of course subscribe to never miss another upload on this channel. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.